CryFest 2020.
Let it commence. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome
Welcome
to our coffee talk.
to our coffee talk. But just repeat you the whole time.
That's not going to go well at all. So, welcome to CryFest 2020. This is our first episode of our shadow work series.
Yes.
Crying will happen.
Yeah.
Probably.
Very likely.
Yeah.
Highly likely.
Highly likely. We should probably start off by saying all of these shadow work episodes are not going to have a solution.
Yeah.
At least we don't have a solution. If you have one, by all means, please share in the comments. We need help. Help us.
I need an adult.
I need an adult. Help me. So, first episode, shadow work series.
Yes.
We are going to be talking about the masks that we wear.
Unmasking the Faceless.
Unmasking the Faceless. Now I'm just going to repeat after you.
It'll be a fair trade.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us first, because you do a lot of shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
What is shadow work and what does shadow work mean to you in your practice?
Yeah. So for me, shadow work is really delving into the reasons why you think the way you think, the reasons why you behave the way you behave. What is your bottom self and why are you that way? What are the seeds underneath that?
Why am I this person?
Why am I like this? Really? Why am I like this?
Help. Yes.
Help me. Really figuring out like what makes you tick.
Yeah.
What everyone has broken patterns in your behavior, broken thoughts. What made you think that way in the first place? What shaped you? And not letting your shadow self rule your everyday self. Trying to figure out who you are at the bottom. Like, what is your true self? And shadow work is all about trying to get that true self, that powerful feeling, that sovereignty to the surface so that you can work with your shadow self. You're never going to get rid of her. That person is always going to be a part of you because she's shaped who you are and she is your experiences. She is the way you interact with the world based on what you've experienced.
Yeah.
But she doesn't rule you. And understanding how you can work with her and overcome those broken thoughts and those broken patterns. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. This is work that it never ends. Like you never...
Right.
I don't want to use the word fix it because I feel like we're not in need of fixing.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
no. No one's in need of fixing.
Mm-hmm.
No one is completely broken.
Mm-hmm.
But it's understanding this is why I am the way I am, and this is how I can overcome and integrate her.
Yeah.
Integrate that self into my everyday, and understanding like these are the things that have shaped me. This has made me who I am.
Viewing things through the scope of not necessarily broken or bad thought patterns, but if this is my go-to reaction of how I react to different situations,
Yes.
what is the root of what has caused me to react that way?
Yeah, and understanding it.
Yeah. How do I address what that root is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I address what that root is? How do I not react this way in the future if it's not how I want to react?
Yeah.
If I want to react a different way, then you have to start with understanding what made you react that way in the first place. Finding that root. Once you know what that root is, then you can start really figuring out how you can change the way you react.
Or maybe, too, devil's advocate always, maybe understanding that the way that you react to things, even though they are seen as a shadowy side, are actually perfectly okay.
Yeah.
But society or whatever has trained you to believe that it's not okay to react that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. So for today's first episode in our Shadow Work series, like we've mentioned before, we are talking about unmasking the faceless. What are the masks we wear every day? Why do we feel the need to wear them? What are they? Why are they there? Understanding the root of what made you feel like you needed to put that mask on. So where do we begin?
I would say, what is the mask?
What is the mask?
What is the mask to you?
To me, so for me, the mask is a part that I play. It's almost a feeling of acting in my own life. This is what I feel like I need to behave like to certain people in certain situations in order to not be the other.
What do you mean by the other?
In order to fit in order to not be singled out in any kind of situation where, whether it be work, whether it be like a social situation, I never want to be the odd person out. And it's not so much I don't want to be myself, it's that I feel like I need to play a part in order to not be the odd man out. I kind of think of myself as a lone wolf a lot, like we talked about, a couple of episodes ago. But when I'm in a social situation or when I'm in a work situation, I don't want to feel like I'm not integrated with everyone else. And I think it's because mentally I'm already different. Mentally I'm already separate from others. But I don't want it to be visible to other people. So I act differently. I put on a mask so that I fit in those types of situations.
How much of that do you feel like is to make other people feel more comfortable?
A lot of it is to make other people feel comfortable. Because I think everyone can think back to a situation where you were your true self in a moment and you said something that was your true self and you could see others visibly react and become uncomfortable. And that one situation shapes the way I or you or others may react differently in the future. We may not be our true selves in that moment. We may put on a mask or play a part in order to make others feel more comfortable and to make you feel more comfortable because you don't want others to look at you as something separate.
The oddball.
Right.
Yeah.
What about for you? What is the mask for you? What does that look like?
For me, I feel like it has a lot to do with that, with, reading the room, if you will.
Yeah.
And I see it more as a place of protection. So it's a tricky thing because nobody ever wants to be in the position that you feel like you are lowering yourself or quieting yourself to just for the sake of making other people feel more comfortable around you, because then you feel like you're wearing a mask, and you don't feel like you're able to be your true authentic self. But I think there's also a really kind of beautiful side of it too, that it allows me to have a lens for kind of gauging like what is my intention in this conversation. I think that some of my past and how I grew up has really shaped the way that I approach conversations about my path or my spirituality. And growing up in a really big religious place, we live in the South, you know, and not just where we are locationally or geographically, but that's a lot of the culture of a lot of families here. And I've seen sides where it's a very personal thing and it's a very like beautiful spiritual, inner workings, but I've also seen sides where this is what is expected to you to believe. It is forced upon you. You're going to listen to it. And I don't ever want to make other people feel like when I speak about what I do and about my path, that I am trying to force that upon them as well, you know?
And I feel like people naturally want to feel that way. Like they naturally, if someone's talking to you about whether it's a belief, whether it's a practice, whether it's anything that they believe or do, almost you feel like they're trying to force it on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we try not to talk about things that we know is going to make someone else uncomfortable, because we never want to make anyone feel like we're trying to force
our ideals
or our lifestyles on somebody else.
I wonder how much of that is conditioned, though, for us to react to situations that way. I mean, for us to immediately go to that place of they're so passionate about this, so that means that they must be trying to convert me or trying to force their ideals.
Trying to change my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just that reaction in itself it's just a sticky situation.
It is.
And you feel like you have to tiptoe around it.
Yeah.
This is a hard topic, I feel like, to discuss, because part of it, for me, the mask is a very torn place. Sometimes it makes me feel really empowered and like I'm protecting myself.
And sometimes
it makes me feel like I'm being silenced.
Yeah. And we're gonna get into that. You know, what about it makes you feel powerful? What about it makes you feel powerless?
Yeah.
Because there's two sides to that coin.
Yeah.
Right? I can tell you that there's a lot of times where it does make me feel that way. Either way. And I think that's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
You know? What makes you feel like you need to put that mask on?
There is the factor of not wanting to make people uncomfortable. There is also the factor of, like I said, self-protection. Sometimes, too, you're just too tired to go there. Or people have reacted to things that you've said or things that they've seen about you in a way that isn't how you wanted them to react, and that kind of makes you draw in, but it also starts to shape that relationship too. Even just, it's crazy how much, especially in a world where we're not as face-to-face as we're used to being, how even just a look that somebody gives you can really shape the way that you interpret everything about your relationship with them. You know? And so sometimes for me, I put on the mask if I feel like things are getting sticky or I'm just too tired to go into it, because that I think is perfectly warranted. You know, you shouldn't feel like you have to constantly be defending yourself.
That's what I was gonna say. There's a lot of times, you know, the family that I grew up in, very similar to yours, not probably to the extent that yours was, but super religious household. And my dad and I love to debate. Right? Probably too much. Probably an unhealthy amount, because sometimes we just fight about it. And I think that's how I react to a lot of things. I feel like I'm constantly thinking that someone's trying to debate with me. And I don't always want to do that, because honestly, I don't feel the need to tell you why I do or believe or practice the way I do. I don't need to defend that. But there's always a part of me that feels like I'm gonna have to jump on the defensive. And sometimes it's easier to just not even have that conversation. You know?
And I've been very lucky, because even though I've grown up around a lot of religion, my family is, even if they're not understanding, and sometimes probably think that I'm just being
a weirdo.
Me.
With me.
They, for the most part, have always been not supportive, go do witchcraft, but they at least try and listen and try and understand. You know? And even despite that, I still have that reaction. Isn't that strange?
It is. Because I don't know, there's probably, because of the way where we live,
Yeah.
how everyone is around here,
Yeah.
95% of the population
Yeah.
is Christian.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a bad thing.
No.
That's not like
That's their path.
That's their path,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But I don't want to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm so not open to showing people who I am, because I don't want you to tell me that I'm going to hell, one, or two, like try and save me.
Yeah.
Because I find that incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah.
That's not my path.
Mm-hmm.
That's your path,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. But that's not what I believe. That's not what I'm called to do. So I feel like that's probably a big part of why I feel the need to put the mask on, is because I don't want someone to tell me that I'm doing wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or that I am wrong, or that
there's something about you that needs to be fixed.
Right.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not broken, and neither are you.
Yeah.
And neither are you.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are who we are. And I think that's why we wanted to have this conversation first. There's obviously a lot of other things with shadow work that we want to dive into, but it's hard to be who you are all the time. You can't always be on.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, and that's what we're trying to break down
Mm-hmm.
now.
I think there's also a certain level of secrecy that is kind of built into this whole path.
There is, yeah.
But it at times feels very natural and very comfortable to be shrouded.
Yes, shrouded in mystery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jinx.
But it is, and it's enticing.
Yeah.
You know? Who doesn't want to be mysterious?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a...
It can be empowering.
Yeah, it can be empowering to know that deep down inside yourself, no one knows you but you. And I struggle with that a lot. You know, I don't know why I feel the need to like hide who I am from everyone around me, but there's always this little seed that I just want to keep to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, to your point, it's empowering to know that, you know, I don't have to share everything. I can keep a little bit to myself. Yeah.
And I think that on that same note, you don't have to share.
Right. You don't. Because you can't give, it's the same thing of like, you can't, you know, what's the word? You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Right? You can't share everything about yourself to everybody. There's going to be parts of yourself that you want to keep, and you don't have to share, and that's okay. Like, it should be part of who you are, that you don't feel the need to open yourself up completely.
Or explain. Or debate.
Right.
Or even open up. Sometimes people don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then if we expect that respect from other people's paths towards us, we also have to be the same way towards others.
Right.
You know? It has to be, I mean, it's a two-way street with any relationship.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between having a healthy conversation of somebody seeking to understand and just, you know, just
Yeah.
projecting everything everything out there for all to see if it's not going to be reciprocated. You know, like what is the benefit and what is the point in that?
Right. And I mean, for me as well, like, a part of the reason that I feel the need to not even share just all of myself, but just share who I am at my core to everyone that I meet.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I mean like, hi, I'm a witch and this is what I practice and this is what I believe. I don't feel the need to share that with everybody because outside of everything else we've already talked about, I think there's a fear of not being valued. And besides having to like basically defend who you are as a person, but also that fear of being thought of as a joke or an archetype. I'm sure everyone has experienced at some point someone finding out, you know, that you're a witch, and asking you to do something that may be offensive.
Or it's just absurd.
Or absurd.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you asking me to do that?
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm not going to. And then having to basically explain why what they're asking is
absurd.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of times where, you know, I've been asked to do things that have really filled me, like that have really given me that sense of satisfaction, because who doesn't want to be that village witch who everyone goes to for help?
Yeah.
I think that's most people's dreams. I mean, at least it is for me. But, and when someone comes to you and asks for help and it's something that you're like, oh, yeah, I can help.
It lights a fire.
Yeah, it does. It's like, I can help you with that. This is what I'm going to do. And it's so fulfilling. But then there's also those situations where someone asks you to do something that's completely absurd.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not what I practice. Like, that's not who I am. You are completely misunderstanding me. And when that happens, it makes me feel like you think I'm a joke. If you think that I'm going to do that, and then that's what I believe in or that I practice, because it's not.
And I think when you open that side up to somebody else and they treat it as a joke intentionally, you know, I think there's a difference between people just not understanding what you do, because it's hard to, like, I mean, we talked about this in the first episode, the community is so vast and people's practices are so different, but for somebody to be dismissive entirely feels like a betrayal.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and no one ever wants to feel like you're an archetype.
Yeah.
You know? Because no one is an archetype. You are who you are, you know? And there may be things that you like to do. Maybe I like to do seances. Maybe that's something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of. Maybe it's not. But you don't know until you ask. And just assuming that there's a witch archetype and every witch does it this way, and so you're asked to do things that any witch would do. And I'm not an archetype.
I'm my own individual person.
I am my own individual person. And no one wants to feel like you're just being brushed in like broad strokes. You know?
Let's talk about choice. So when it comes to being shrouded or wearing the mask, when does it feel powerful? When does it feel not powerful?
So for me, it feels powerful when I make the choice. For example, there's a lot of times, I would say most of the time while I'm at work, I keep that part of myself to myself. And it's like a secret seed that I like hold within myself. That's powerful. That feels powerful to me, because one, I am someone that doesn't believe in talking about any kind of spirituality at work in a work setting. Same thing with politics. Like, it's just not something you talk about at work, because it can make other people uncomfortable. Because I can tell you many, many, many times I've been put in a really uncomfortable situation at work because someone feels the need to talk about their religion. Because we live in the South.
And it's just assumed.
Right? If you live in North Carolina in the Bible Belt, you must be a Christian. So let's talk about what I learned in church the other day. that's not something I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made me super uncomfortable to the point where I don't talk about what I practice in work settings
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to make someone else uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Like, I think that's, if you have a different situation where, you know, you can be more open about who you are at work, like,
awesome.
Yeah. And I'm super fucking jealous because I wish that I could. But I'm like, right, and I have been in situations before where I have been able to be myself.
Yeah.
In that way, but right now I don't. So I make the choice to keep that part of myself to myself, and that's very empowering to me because it feels good to be able to make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
When I have the choice taken from me, that can be very like, it feels like it's taking my power away. Being made to feel less than and being made to feel like unimportant in that way can make you like, for example, just so everyone kind of understands, like, obviously we live in the South, right? There's members of my family who are aware of like who I am and what I practice. The majority of my family does not know. And there's been occasions where I've been asked to hide that part of myself around other family members in order to not make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That can feel really fucking shitty because it's one thing when you choose to hide certain aspects of yourself, but it's another thing entirely to have been asked because it makes you feel like who you are is not enough.
Or shameful.
Or it's shameful. The implied aspect of that is you make others uncomfortable and you are not good enough.
Yeah.
We've been doing so good.
I know, I broke it. You just broke me.
I'm sorry. It's fine, everything's fine.
Wait, suck him back in.
Okay. Have another sip of your whiskey coffee.
Okay.
Probably drinking not a good idea.
No. No.
What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, it feels the same.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I am always stuck in this kind of back and forth weird limbo because I feel like, generally speaking, I'm a pretty open person.
Yeah.
Like, there are very few things that I like just won't go there, you know, if asked.
Yeah.
You know, I again never want to feel like I'm being the person that's just like, here is everything that I believe in, everything, who I am, what I want, these are my desires, these are my intentions, I'm just gonna like throw them all over you and expect you to just deal with them.
Right.
Because nobody likes to be reciprocating of that. When people come to me from a place of they want to understand, I'm always willing to have a conversation.
Yeah.
In certain settings, again, you know, workplace is not the setting for me, you know? And especially what I do in my work, I never want to put those intentions on somebody else.
Yeah.
And I work very closely with people.
Yeah, know? And I think that's probably something that we should state too. Like, obviously, both of us work at different places. We have different roles.
Yeah.
But we share the development of other people.
Yeah.
So a huge part of our roles at work are developing others.
Yeah.
And when you are in charge of someone else's development in that way, it puts you in a really weird spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
if you go there.
If you go there. If you don't go there, then you're fine. But in that kind of role, you have to be kind of a blank canvas because you don't want to influence anyone with your like spirituality or your religious views or anything like that, political views, anything.
Or even just really your opinions.
Your
The
opinions.
purpose of developing people is to lead them to what they're seeking and let them make decisions.
And bring out in them their strengths.
Yeah.
And develop those strengths.
Yeah.
So in that kind of situation, you kind of have to take that part of yourself out.
Yeah. I think that to me feels like that's my work. That's a completely separate.
Yeah, it's a completely different like
from
sphere.
Relationships.
Yes.
I think with what I do for my work, I don't feel like I'm being stripped of the choice.
Right.
That is a decision that I've made.
That's a choice that we're making.
To not go there.
Right.
You know, when it comes to relationships with friends, with family, with people outside of my work life, again, I think it's very much about is it my choice, or is it something that somebody says I just cannot and will not?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily accept. I'm not asking anybody to accept or to believe what I believe,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of attach value to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I valuable enough to you as friend, as family member, for you to
accept me for who I am?
Not even accept it, but still love me despite.
Yeah, I'm not crying, you're crying.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need anybody to tell me that what I'm doing is right.
No.
Because I know that it is. And to have that entirely undermined, again, I don't believe the same things that plenty of other people believe. And I'm not just talking about Christianity.
No.
I'm talking about anything else besides my path.
Right.
And even within witchcraft, there are different paths that are things that I'm like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's okay.
But we can still love people despite
Mm-hmm.
what our beliefs are.
Yeah, and I think, like, I'm glad that you said that. I think that's one reason why we feel, and it's not even like, it's so hard to put this into words. There's a fear that you won't be loved
Mm-hmm.
because of what you believe and what you practice.
Mm-hmm.
I have the fear that I'm not going to be loved because of what I believe, what I practice. So it feels like that choice is being taken because it feels like you have to hide who you are to those that you love because of the fear that they're not going to love you.
And then there's the fear of, can anybody ever really love me if I am not truly being my whole self?
Mm-hmm.
Not to go down that rabbit hole, but
How
that
much
one
time do we
just
have?
stabs a little deeper, you know? Fuck. It's like, again, that's the root of the shadow, if you will. You know?
Yeah. Well, I love you.
I love you.
Okay. This is fun. Last thing that we want to talk about, the power in naming.
The power in naming what you are and what you practice, and actually saying it out loud holds a lot of weight.
It does. And it's very freeing too. Because in that moment, I can give you a direct example. Someone that I have been friends with, work friends with, for like a long time, really respected her as a person, knew that we were both completely different, very different people, which is good, it's fine. Knowing that she was very religious. So feeling the need to never actually, go there with her. At the end of the day, people know. Whether you say it or not, people know that you're different. Because you can tell when they don't talk about their church experience or their relationship with their God because they know it makes you uncomfortable, so they don't do it. You know that they know.
Or they assume that it will make you uncomfortable.
Or they'll assume that it makes you uncomfortable. Sometimes it does, I'm not gonna lie.
When it gets pushy, it does.
It does. It does for me. Like, it's a little bit of a trigger for me. You know, where I grew up and how I grew up, like, I don't really want to talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, that's not something I really want to talk about, and so it does make me uncomfortable a lot. Like, I'm gonna be really honest about that. But there was one moment where it was like, I think I finally had enough, and I told her, like, just so you know, I'm a witch.
You hit that wall.
I just fucking was like,
here it is.
There it is. But it felt so good.
Yeah.
Like, it felt so freeing. It felt like just taking that weight off and being tired of being somebody else or feeling like I was playing a role, just being able to just drop it all and not care what happened.
Yeah.
Like, not care what it meant.
Yeah.
Knowing that, you know, she and I were completely different. We knew we were completely different. We were still able to be friends. And just finally putting a name to that difference. Yeah. It was super freeing. I don't recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, you know the people in your life. You know who's going to be accepting. You know who may never talk to you ever again. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, you have to be the one that decides that that's what you want to do. And that you want to open that door. And that you know if that person never talks to you ever again, you're going to be okay with it.
Yeah. But again, the choice is yours.
The choice is yours.
And the power is yours. Yeah.
That is the power, you know? Having that choice and being able to make that choice is very empowering. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, you are the one in charge of your own destiny. And you get to make that choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it if you want to do it.
Do you want to burp me? It's not coming.
Okay. I'm going to keep that in. Do you want to burp me?
Burp me!
Burp me!
Burp me like a baby.
We only cried a little.
Just a little bit. We did good.
We did good. We did good.
Boom.
Boom.
Not so CryFest.
Not so CryFest 2020. Stay tuned for our next shadow work episode.
We'll probably cry more.
Probably cry more. Next time we'll probably have a drink before we film. And then a drink while we film. And then a drink after we film because we fucking deserve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Don't forget. Like and subscribe. Hit the little bell to receive notifications whenever we post a new episode. Mm-hmm. Last episode we didn't have an outro because we're new at this.
Yeah. Rookie mistakes.
Rookie mistakes. But as always, please comment below. Give us your suggestions. Help us. Mm-hmm. If you have something that you want to add to this conversation, please add it. Do you have a way of working through these emotions? Please tell me how you do it because I struggle. I'm an empath and all I feel is emotion. It's like, that's who I am, is emotion. That's it.
You're a walking emotion.
I am walking emotion. And it's hard. So how do you deal with that? Yeah.
And what other shadow work are you doing within yourself right now to not only deal with these things, but to feel empowered in your work and feel like you are able to put who you are out there in a way that feels like it's your choice?
Yeah.
What things and what scenarios feel appropriate to you and don't feel appropriate to you?
Yeah. Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next episode.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.